My father kicked me out of the house that I myself bought and maintained, so I told him I'd stop paying the bills, but he slapped me and said it was my obligation to support him. Dad, nobody hits me. My name is Daniel. I'm 28 years old, and until a week ago, I lived in a house I bought with my own sweat. I didn't inherit anything. I didn't win the lottery. I didn't get help from anyone. Every brick in that house carries my effort. Overtime at the factory, weekends without rest, and years saving every last penny. It was my pride, my refuge. But now I'm sleeping on my friend Mike's couch, with a bag of clothes as a pillow, because my own father threw me out of my house. Yes, my house. And the worst part isn't even that. He slapped me when I said I wouldn't keep paying his bills. He looked at me with those cold eyes and said, "It's your obligation to support me. Nobody hits me. Nobody." It all started 3 years ago when my mom passed away. She was the glue of the family, the one who calmed the waters when my dad got grumpy or demanding. He was always a tough man, one of those who think the world owes them something just for existing. When she left, he crumbled inside, but instead of seeking help or trying to move forward, he decided I'd be his crutch. I was 25 then, living in a small apartment, and just starting to save for something better. But one day, he showed up with a suitcase and said, "I'm staying with you. I can't be alone." I didn't know how to say no. He was my dad. What was I supposed to do? The problem is, it wasn't temporary. He settled in like the place was his. At first, I understood. He was grieving just like me. But then he started asking me for money for his stuff, cigarettes, beers, bets at the corner bar. "Aren't you going to help your old man?" he'd say when I got home dead tired from the factory. I'd give him something because I felt bad seeing him like that, but he kept asking for more. When I told him I couldn't keep giving him so much, he got furious. "You're selfish. After all I did for you," he'd yell. I didn't know what to say. I could barely remember what he'd done for me, aside from yelling at me as a kid for not getting good grades. So I decided to take the big step. I bought the house. It was a modest 2-story place with a small yard and walls that needed paint, but it was mine. I signed the papers with the bank, made the down payments with my savings, and moved in with the hope of starting fresh. I thought it'd be my independence, my space. But my dad followed me like a shadow. "You're not going to leave me in that dump now that you've got this, right?" he said. And again, out of pity, out of that damn guilt I carried, I said yes. That he could stay with me. The first few months weren't so bad. He'd spend the day watching TV while I worked 12-hour shifts to pay the mortgage, the electricity, the water, everything. But little by little, he started acting like the house was his. He'd move my stuff around, invite his bar buddies over to drink beer in my living room, and if I said anything, he'd look at me like I was the intruder. "Relax, kid. This is family," he'd say. Family to him meant me paying for everything while he didn't lift a finger. A month ago, things blew up. I came home one Friday with my paycheck, exhausted but happy because I was finally caught up on debts. My plan was to rest, maybe order a pizza, and watch a movie. But my dad was waiting in the kitchen with that face I knew too well. He wanted something. "I need $500, he said straight out. "For what?" I asked, though I could guess the answer. "For the bar. I owe some rounds." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe it. "Seriously, Dad? $500 for the bar? I'm killing myself to pay for this house, and you want me to fund your beers?" His face turned red, like I'd insulted him. "Don't talk to me like that. I'm your father. You owe me respect." Fed up with his guilt trips, I let the truth out. "If you need me so bad, keep your threats. But I'm not paying any more bills if you keep this up." I didn't see what came next. His hand flew on my face so fast I couldn't dodge it. The slap made me stumble back, my ear ringing and my cheek burning. I stood there frozen, staring at him as he pointed at me. "You don't talk to me like that, Daniel. It's your obligation to support me. It always has been." That broke something inside me. Nobody hits me. Nobody. I wanted to respond, to tell him everything I'd kept quiet for years, but he didn't let me. "Get out of my house," he shouted like he owned it. "If you're not going to support me, I don't want you here." He was so blind with rage, he didn't care that the house was in my name, that I paid every damn cent. He shoved me toward the door, nearly knocking me down. "Get out now." He kept yelling that I had no choice. I grabbed my jacket, my phone, and my car keys with shaking hands. "This isn't over. I said, my voice cracking but firm. That house is mine, and you know it. He laughed, mocking me. Let's see you take it from me, you useless kid. I slammed the door behind me, and as I walked to the garage, I felt anger, pain, and a kind of emptiness I couldn't explain. My own father had kicked me out of my house. My own house that I ended up at Mike's place, my friend from the factory. I knocked on his door at 11 at night, and he opened it without asking much. What happened, man? He said, seeing my red face and watery eyes. My dad kicked me out. I blurted, still not believing it. Stay as long as you need, he replied, handing me a blanket. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about how my life had gone so wrong. My dad was in my house, probably drinking beer with his buddies, while I was on a borrowed couch. But amid all that mess, something sparked in me. I wasn't going to let this end like that. That house was mine, legally mine, and he had no right to take it. I'd fight for what was mine. I didn't know how, but this was just the beginning that I woke up on Mike's couch with a neck ache that felt like extra punishment. The blanket was tangled around my legs, and the sun was already streaming through the window, reminding me I hadn't slept until 4 in the morning. Everything from a night before kept spinning in my head. My dad kicking me out of my own house, the slap in the face, his yells about it being my obligation to support him. I got up slowly, my body heavy, and looked in the bathroom mirror. There was still a reddish mark on my cheek. That wasn't going to fade easily. Mike was already in the kitchen, brewing coffee. You look like a truck hit you, he said, handing me a mug. Something like that, I replied, sitting on a chair that creaked under my weight. I told him everything, how my dad had asked for money again, how I'd snapped, and how I'd ended up on the street after he threw me out like I was a stranger. Mike listened without interrupting, just shaking his head now and then. When I finished, he stayed quiet for a bit, then said, So what are you going to do? That house is yours, Daniel. You can't let him steal it like that. He was right, but I didn't know where to start. I have no idea, I admitted. Legally, the house is in my name, but he's inside, and I don't think he'll leave just because I ask him to. Mike took a sip of coffee and scratched his beard. Then don't ask him. Make him leave. Go to the bank, the cops, a lawyer, I don't know. But don't let him get away with it. His words clicked. I'd always let my dad run things his way, but this time was different. This time I wasn't backing down. I spent the morning thinking about my options. I didn't have much saved after paying the mortgage and bills, but I did have the house papers, the contract, the deed, all stored in a folder in my car. That was my weapon. My dad could yell all he wanted, but legally, he had no claim. I decided to start there. I told Mike I was stepping out for a bit and drove to the bank. I wanted to check my mortgage situation and see if there was any way to use it to my advantage. The bank, a nice woman named Sarah, helped me after a wait that felt endless. I explained everything as calmly as I could, that I was the owner, that I paid for everything, but my dad had kicked me out and stayed in the house. She reviewed my account and the documents I brought. Look, Mr. Daniel, she said after a while, the mortgage is in your name, and you've paid on time. No one else has legal rights to the property unless there's a change in the deed. If someone's occupying your house without your permission, that's an issue you can resolve with the authorities. The authorities? Like the police? I asked. Sarah nodded. Yes, you can report it as a legal occupation. But I'd recommend talking to a lawyer first to make sure everything's clear and there are no issues later. I left the bank with a mix of hope and nerves. The idea of getting the police involved against my own dad twisted my stomach. But what other choice did I have? He wasn't going to leave willingly. I knew that on the way back to Mike's, I stopped at a convenience store to grab some food. While I was paying, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad. Bring money if you want to come back. The power's out, and I'm not sitting in the dark because of you. I stared at the screen, dumbfounded. Seriously? He kicks me out and still expects me to pay? I didn't reply. I turned off my phone and kept driving, my head boiling. That just fueled my resolve to fight. When I got back, Mike was watching TV. I told him about the bank and my dad's text. That old man's got some nerve, he said, laughing. He doesn't get that you're not sending free checks anymore. Well, he's about to find out, I said, more determined than ever. We spent the rest of the afternoon looking up lawyers online. We found one offering free consultations nearby. I called and got an appointment for the next day. I finally felt like I was doing something not just wallowing in my luck. That night, as I tried to sleep on the couch, I thought about how I'd gotten here. I'd always wanted to help my dad, but I never imagined he'd see me as his ATM. I remembered the times he yelled at me as a kid, the times he said I was worthless, and how now, when I had something of my own, he tried to take it. It hurt, but it also gave me strength. I wasn't letting him win this time. The next day, I got up early and put on the best clothes I had in my bag, a decent shirt and clean jeans. I wanted to look serious for the lawyer. I arrived at the office, a small place with white walls and a desk full of papers. The lawyer, a skinny guy with glasses named Mr. Thomas, listened closely as I told him the whole story. When I finished, he adjusted his glasses and said, "This is straightforward, Daniel. The house is yours. You've got the documents, and he has no legal right. We can start with a formal eviction notice. If he doesn't leave, we go to the police and, if needed, a judge. But there's something you need to decide. Are you willing to see this through to the end?" I paused for a second. He was my dad, the man who raised me in his own way. But he was also the man who'd kicked me out of my house, who'd hit me for not giving him money. "Yes," I said finally. "I'm going all the way." Mr. Thomas gave a small smile. "Good. Then let's get started." He handed me a paper with fine print and a bunch of legal terms I didn't fully understand. "This is a formal eviction notice," he explained. "It gives your father 15 days to leave the house willingly. If he doesn't, we can request a court order and remove him with the police." I skimmed the paper. My name was there as the owner, along with the house's address and a clear warning. My dad had to go or face legal consequences. I signed the dotted line with a slightly shaky hand. It was real. It was happening. How does he get this? I asked as I handed it back. "We send it via certified messenger," Mr. Thomas said. "Someone delivers it in person, and he has to sign to prove he received it. If he's not there or refuses, it's still considered served. There's no way he can ignore it." I nodded, picturing my dad's face when he read it. I knew he wouldn't take it well, but I didn't care anymore. He'd crossed the line by kicking me out, and now he'd face the consequences that I left with the notice we were sending to my dad. I didn't know how he'd react, but there was no turning back. That house was mine, and he'd have to accept it, whether he liked it or not. Driving back to Mike's, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: control. For the first time, I was fighting for myself, and I wasn't stopping. Part of me wanted to go to the house and confront him myself, but I knew that'd only make things worse. I had to play this smart, like Mr. Thomas said, so I went back to Mike's and waited. The messenger was delivering the paper that afternoon, and there was nothing more to do until my dad reacted. That night, Mike and I were watching a lousy movie on TV when my phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number. I answered, and on the other end, I heard my dad's gruff voice. "What the hell is this, Daniel?" he yelled without a greeting. "A paper saying I have to leave my house. Are you crazy?" I got up from the couch and stepped into the hall so Mike wouldn't have to hear the drama. "It's not your house, Dad. It's mine. I bought it. I pay for it. You kicked me out, remember? This is what happens when you cross that line." He laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was venomous. "You're not kicking me out of here, kid. This house is as much mine as yours after all I did for you. You think a little paper's going to scare me? Try it." I was shaking with anger, but I forced myself to stay calm. "It's not just a paper, Dad. It's the law. You've got 15 days to leave, or the police would drag you out. Your choice." There was a long silence on the other end. Then he said, "You're a traitor. A son doesn't do this to his father." And he hung up. That night, as I tried to sleep, I thought about my mom. She always told me to be strong, but also to take care of family. I wondered what she'd say if she saw me now, fighting my dad over a house. She'd probably be sad, but I think she'd understand too. This wasn't just about the house. It was about everything he'd taken from me. My peace, my effort, my dignity. And I wasn't letting that slide. The next few days were tense. I didn't hear from my dad again, but every time my phone rang, I braced for more yelling. Mr. Thomas called me on Friday to confirm the notice had been delivered and signed. "Now we just wait," he said. "If he doesn't leave, we move to the next step." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "Thanks, Mr. Thomas. Let's keep going." I hung up and looked out Mike's window. 12 days left. 12 days for my dad to decide if he'd leave the easy way or the hard way. and something told me it wouldn't be the easy way. I'll let you know what happens when the day comes. Update 1. Hey everyone. Thanks for your comments and messages of support. Lots of you said my dad's a savage, and you're right. The 15 days flew by like lightning and dragged like eternity. Every morning, I woke up with the same knot in my stomach, waiting for some sign from my dad. A call, a text, anything saying he'd leave my house without a fight. But nothing. Just silence. Mr. Thomas had told me that wasn't a good sign. If he doesn't leave today, tomorrow we request the court order, he explained over the phone the night before. Get ready, Daniel. This might get rough. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I was ready, or at least I wanted to believe I was. It was Wednesday, the deadline day. I got up from Mike's couch before sunrise, nerves on edge. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. I threw on an old shirt and jeans, but my hands shook as I buttoned up. Mike was already awake, sipping coffee in the kitchen. Today's the day, huh? He said, looking at me seriously. Yeah, I replied, my voice hoarse. I'm going to see if he's gone. He set his mug down and stepped closer. Don't go alone. If that old man's as crazy as you say, he could do anything. I hesitated for a second, then nodded. Come with me then. We drove in silence to my street. The sky was gray, like it knew what was coming. I parked the car a block away, and we walked the rest. When we reached the corner, I stopped dead. The living room light was on, and loud music blared from inside. My heart sank. He hadn't left. He was there, defying me, like the notice meant nothing. Damn it, I muttered, clenching my fists. Mike put a hand on my shoulder. Easy, man. Let's see what's up. We approached slowly. The front door was ajar, and the stench of stale beer wafted out like a cloud. I peered through the window and saw him, my dad, sitting in my armchair, a bottle in hand, laughing with Tom and some other guy I didn't recognize. Empty cans littered the floor, and one of my lamps was shattered in a corner. My house, my refuge, looked like a dump. Rage burned at my throat like acid. That son of a... I started, but Mike grabbed my arm. Don't go in like that, Daniel. Call the lawyer first. I wanted to ignore him, storm in, and drag him out yelling, but I knew he was right. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and dialed Mr. Thomas. He didn't leave, I said as soon as he picked up. He's in the house, drinking like nothing's wrong. Mr. Thomas didn't sound surprised. I figured as much. Stay there. I'm coming with the police. I got the order ready. I just needed to confirm he didn't comply. I hung up and looked at Mike. They're coming with the cops. He nodded, but didn't say anything. We both knew this was about to blow up. We waited at the corner, hiding behind a tree. Every minute felt like a stab. I watched shadows move inside my house, heard the laughter, and every sound hurt more. That house was everything I'd built, and my dad was trampling it like it was worthless. I remember the nights I spent painting those walls, the times I skipped meals to pay the bills, and now he was there, mocking me. I wanted to cry, scream, break something, but I stood still, teeth gritted, waiting. Half an hour later, a black car pulled up, followed by a patrol car. Mr. Thomas got out of the first, briefcase in hand, and 2 cops stepped out of the second. I walked over fast. It's that one, I said, pointing at the house. Mr. Thomas looked at me sternly. Daniel, stay back. We'll handle it. I nodded, but my feet didn't want to move. Mike pulled me aside as the cops and Mr. Thomas headed to the door point. One of the officers knocked hard. Sir, open the door. It's the police. The music cut off instantly, and for a second, everything went silent. Then I heard my dad's deep, furious voice. What the hell do you want? Mr. Thomas spoke clearly. Sir, I'm Daniel Johnson's lawyer, the owner of this property. You have an eviction order. If you don't leave now, we'll remove you by force. There was a crash of something falling. Then my dad flung the door open. There he was standing in the doorway, face red and eyes blazing. Tom and the other guy hovered behind him, looking unsure. What's this, Daniel? He shouted when he saw me. You're sending the cops after me like I'm a thief. I'm your father, damn it. His voice shook, not with fear but pure rage. I froze, my chest tight. You kicked me out, Dad, I said, my voice weaker than I wanted. That house is mine, and you've got no right to stay. He stepped toward me, but a cop stopped him with a hand. Sir, calm down, or we'll cuff you. My dad turned on the officer like he might swing, but he held back. "This is betrayal," he yelled, glaring at me again. "After all I did for you, you do this." Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "What you did was kick me out of my house," I shot back. "I paid for everything there, and you trashed it." Mr. Thomas stepped in. "Sir, you have 5 minutes to leave with your stuff, or we'll take you out." My dad let out a bitter laugh. "I'm not going anywhere." He turned around like that settled it. But the cops didn't hesitate. They followed him in, and next thing I saw was Tom and the other guy scrambling out with their hands up. Then I heard my dad yelling as they dragged him outside. "Let me go. This is my house. Daniel, you'll pay for this." They hauled him out in cuffs, kicking and screaming. His eyes locked on mine, full of hate, and for a second, I felt the ground drop out beneath me. This was my dad, the man who'd carried me as a kid, and now he was here like an enemy. The cops shoved him into the patrol car, and Mr. Thomas walked over. "It's done, Daniel. The house is yours again." But I didn't feel triumph. I felt a crushing emptiness. I stepped inside slowly. The place was wrecked. Broken dishes, trash everywhere, my stuff scattered like it was worthless. I sank into the armchair, head in my hands, and finally let the tears come. Mike sat beside me in silence. I didn't know if I'd won or lost, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same. Update 2. Hey, I know it's been 6 months since my last update, but something happened that scared the hell out of me. It had been 5 days since the cops dragged my dad out of my house, and I was still trying to find some peace. The house was more or less in order. I'd swept up the trash, painted the walls, and changed the door lock. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine again. I slept poorly, always with one eye open, waiting for something to happen. Mike came by sometimes to keep me company, but that night I was alone, watching TV to keep my mind off things. The house's silence still set my nerves on edge. It was 11 at night when it happened. A crash jolted me off the couch. The living room window shattered into 1,000 pieces, and something heavy hit the floor with a thud. I froze for a second, heart pounding in my ears, before running to see what it was. A brick. There, amid the broken glass, was a red brick with a crumpled paper taped to it. I picked it up with shaking hands and unfolded it. The words were scrawled in black ink, big and sloppy. "You'll pay for this, traitor." My breath caught. I looked out the broken window, but the street was dark and empty. Just the wind and the thump of my own chest. I grabbed the bat I kept nearby and stepped into the yard, looking for any sign of him. I knew it was my dad. No one else would hate me enough to do this. But there was nothing. No footsteps, no shadows, nothing. I went back inside, the paper still in my hand, and sat in the armchair, staring at that threat like it might catch fire. "You'll pay for this, traitor." The words dug into my brain, and for a moment, I felt fear might choke me. I called Mike and told him, voice shaking. "I'm coming over," he said, but I asked him not to. I didn't want to drag him deeper into this mess. Then I called the police and reported it. They came fast, took pictures of the brick and paper, and said they'd patrol the area. But their faces said what I already knew. They wouldn't find my dad unless he wanted them to. "Call us if anything else happens," one officer said before leaving. I nodded but didn't speak. I was sick of waiting for the next blow. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed with the bat beside me, staring at the broken window I'd covered with a plastic bag. Every noise made me jump. Every shadow looked like him. But nothing else happened. The next few days were a nerve-wracking hell. I checked the street hourly, slept with the lights on, and kept my phone in hand like a weapon. I expected another brick, a yell, something, but it didn't come. The silence returned, and this time it wasn't just in the house. It was in my life. Weeks passed, then months, and I never heard from my dad again. No one saw him at the bar. No one mentioned him. It was like he'd vanished. Mr. Thomas called one day to say they'd dropped the minor charges against him because they couldn't find him to notify him. "He probably left town," he said. I didn't reply. I didn't know whether to feel relief or sadness. That brick was the last scare, the final echo of his rage. And then nothing. Over time, I fixed the window, finished painting the house, and bought new furniture. I went back to work at the factory, saved a little, and even started hanging out with friends again. The house stopped being a cage and became truly mine. But I never forgot that night, or the note on the brick, or my dad's face screaming at me as they hauled him away in cuffs. He was my father, and I lost him forever. I don't know if I paid for something, like he said. I just know I kept going.
Subscribe for more daily stories.